Hi, Assalamualaikum. Okay, today we'll be presenting the topic of he who wants equity must do equity. I would like to introduce the members of my group, which are Fatina Shahira, Siti Khairina, Nur Akila, Diana, Emily, and also me, Aisha.
The maxims of equity may be defined as a set of general principles which are said to govern the way in which equity operates. They used to illustrate the qualities of equity as more flexible, responsive to the needs of the individual, and more inclined to take account of the party's conduct and worthiness. Maxims of equity were developed by the English Court of Chancery and also other courts that administer equitable jurisdiction.
Illegal loan is an illegal activity or acquisitive lending with very high interest rates. An example of an illegal loan is a loan shark, where this particular person will offer to lend some money to those people who cannot get any loan from the banks or other legal sources. In Malaysia and Singapore, there is a slang term for a loan shark which is known as ahlong.
This magazine can be seen in the case of Lodge against National Union Investment Company Limited.
This maxim deals with the future conduct of the one who seeks for equity, where the court will grant equitable relief to the plaintiff based on the terms and conditions which the court feels appropriate. This maxim also does not require the plaintiff to have a perfect background for him or her to prevail, but the court will refuse to assist if the cause of action is found on the plaintiff's misconduct towards the other party.
Of election. The doctrine of equitable election have two different ways to be applied in cases and circumstances, such as the election of legal proceedings and the election between properties. In the doctrine of equitable election of properties, the applicability of the maxim is where the person who gives his own property to another person, while at the same time had claimed to give the other person's property to a third party. It usually happened when the person who gives his own property had made a mistake. In this equitable doctrine, a person cannot accept and reject the same instrument.
In Malaysia, according to Section 35 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882, it is provided that where a person professes to transfer property which he has no right to transfer, and such part is the same transaction which confers any benefit on the owner of the property, the owner must elect either to confirm such transfer or to dissent from it. In the latter situation, he shall relinquish the benefit conferred, and the benefit relinquished shall revert back to the transferor or his representative as if it had not been disposed of. Nevertheless, where the transfer is gratuitous, the transferor has before the election died or otherwise become incapable of making a fresh transfer, and in circumstances where the transfer is for consideration to the charge of making good to the disappointed transferee the amount or value of the property attempted to be transferred to him.
Previously, the wife's property would be merged with her husband's and could not be claimed as a property of her own. The equity courts have imposed that the husband should have made a reasonable provision for his wife and children. This proposal had been recognized by the law, and the Law Reform Married Women and Tortfeasors Act 1935 has enumerated that married woman has full right over her property and will no longer be consolidated with her husband's property. Situations have been enumerated in multiple cases whereby the wives had rightfully managed to obtain their part of the debated property for marriage based on the maxim.
The maxim who seek for equity must do the equity arise in promissory estoppel, where a promissor by his declaration or negligence conduct cause another person to believe a thing to be true should not be allowed to deny the fact he alleged to exist. This maxim refers to the promissor future conduct. It means that the doctrine prevents someone from denying the truth of statement where the party who made such promise has to carry out his promise. Traditionally, there are several requirements of primary estoppel, which are: promissor must give clear and unambiguous promise. Promissor intended to affect the legal relations between the parties. Promisee must act on that promise made by promissor, and promisee act upon the promise altering his position to his detriment. Also can be referred in the High Tree case, where during the World War II, due to the difficulty in finding tenant, the landlord and lessor agreed that the amount to be paid is half of the full payment. But after the war, the flats become occupied tenants. Thus, the landlord claimed for full amount of the rental, including at the time of war. The court held that the landlord is stopped from claiming full amount during the war.
The restriction of the doctrine can be seen in Section 3 Clause 1 of the Civil Law Act 1956 and Section 64 of Contract Act 1950, where in the Civil Law Act provides that the principle of equity can only be applied when there is a lacuna in Malaysian law and it is suitable with the local circumstances. Besides, Section 64 of Contract Act provides the almost similar principle in nature as primary estoppel, and the only difference is that it is provided for an actual contractual agreement and not only by the promise.
Principle of set-off. The mutual debt is from the litigating parties against each other, and the sum so due shall set off that much due from other party, and only the balance of the account is to be claimed or paid on either side respectively. The elements. Equity will accept a set-off where it would be unconscionable to let one party to assert on its legal right without first accommodating the other's countervailing legal right. Second, equity will sometimes allow set-off, otherwise than between the same parties, where there is a particularly compelling factor that makes reliance on separate rights unconscionably. The requirements for it to be a set-off. The set-off should be against the complainant in a similar volume in which he sues. Second, the demand needs to be liquidated. Can be referred in the cases such as Simon Carp's, B.B. Factors, and Smith, and Hobbs against Dean.
In the English common law, it is limited to the matter where the court will only involve if there is need to help with the subject matter. It is also limited to the demand that an equitable relief which arises from a pending suit. A case to refer is Global Yellow Pages Limited against Pro Media Directories Pte Limited.
Voidable contract is when the consent of the party to an agreement is caused by coercion, fraud, misrep, or undue influence. Equity requires that if he has received some benefit under the contract from the other party, he should restore the same to him.
To conclude, he who seeks equity must do equity. This maxim look into the future, and the court of equity, being a court of conscience, has to look not only at the benefits of the plaintiff but also to the interests of the defendant, and grant relief to the plaintiff only on the condition that he is prepared to give to the defendant what the latter deserves.
The equity is undoubtedly upheld the justice as demand or required based on the circumstances of the case. It can be clearly seen from the application that these maxims has helped to settle many problems in an effective way. That's all from all of us. Hope you understand and thank you for watching.